Next part of a small business website we'll talk about is what's called a domain name. What is a domain name? Well, it's an address on the internet. So as you see on the example there, in a web browser, you may type in something like https://www.google.com. That's the address of your website. What I read to you is actually what's called a URL. It's a Uniform Resource Locator. And it has multiple parts. The www part is actually what's technically called a host name. The word Google, or in my example there, company name, that's the actual domain name. And com, that's what's called a top-level domain. Top-level domains are technically this highest level of a domain name. You don't really think about it from time to time. Some examples are .com, .net, .org, .edu. They could also be a country code, .us, .uk for United Kingdom, Britain, .ca for Canada, and many new ones are popping up all the time, .biz, .online, .pro, .co, or just some examples of different top-level domains. When you're trying to figure out your domain name, it might be useful to use a brainstorming tool. These are actually could come from the places where you might buy your domain, which is a domain registrar, but there's also dedicated websites that might give you suggestions. You can type in a few keywords and get some examples back. There are a few listed here, NameStation, DomainBots, DomainR, and NameBoy that could be helpful for that. Domain names do cost money. When you sign up to pick your given domain name at a domain name registrar, you have to pay for an initial sign-up fee. Sometimes those are discounted, so be aware of that. And then you need to set up an annual renewal of that. You can also buy multiple years in advance. Some common or familiar domain name registrars that exist out there are GoDaddy, Namecheap, Google Domains, and Hover. As part of your domain name, you actually may want to look at the issue of privacy. How does privacy come up? Well, the way the domain system was set up is you would actually have to put your name, your address, your phone number, and contact information. It's not technically bad if you're a business because you probably have that information on your website, but there are times, especially on personal websites, you might actually want to hide that. All this information is put into what's called the Whois database. You can find multiple places on the internet where you can look this up, type in the domain name, and it'll come back with the information that's shown there on the right. In this case, I did a test for Google. You can actually buy domain privacy, which will hide that information and use more generic ones. In this case, you don't find out much information about Google. You actually find just that they're a registrar with a company called Mark Monitor Inc.